All right, there we go. Okay. All right, we got the YouTube set up, we got Zoom set up. All right, so thank you for everybody that is tuning into the live stream. This will be posted on the CWS website after our meeting here. This is our Ken Reeves Memorial Weather Briefing, sponsored by CWS. Today's speaker, we have Bill Syrett, who is the manager of the Weather Center here at Penn State, as well as an assistant professor here. So without further ado, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks very much, Tyler. It's a pleasure to be here to, in some small way, honor Ken, who graduated the same year I did, actually. He's a nice guy then. He's a nice guy right up to the end. He worked tirelessly to bring AccuWeather, the university, weather service together, not only for weather briefings, but weather camp. He was an invaluable help with that. And just an all-around great guy. So I'm proud to be a part of this. Weather, however, won't be that interesting, I fear, but we'll give it a shot here and go over a few things I'm going to talk about. So start with a little bit of climatology for State College. Marissa dealt with that last week, I think Marissa was on. She talked about December climatology. So some of the stuff I talk about will be repeat, but essentially there's not a lot of excitement when you're dealing with our climatology anyway. So we'll go through some temperature, precipitation, and answer that question. Then do a forecast for the local area. I'm not going to get into anything else but Happy Valley weather, I think, for this venue anyway. So what can you expect here in State College? Climate, is what you expect. Weather's what you get. So I picked December 10th as kind of the, end of this week, hot time for the forecast. Average highs, if you go all the way back to 128 years in State College, 37.5 Fahrenheit is the average high. And these are unsmooth. This is just taking averages from all the data points. 30-year average is 39.3, and the 10-year average is actually the lowest number, 37.2. But you have to remember with statistics anyway, if you take one cold year, it's going to bias a 10-year average pretty quickly. And so I wouldn't say we're having an amazing switch in our general overall warming trend because of that one number. Average lows in the mid-20s. That follows a more I guess, expected path where the long-term average is colder than the 30-year normal / average, and colder still than the 10-year average, which has come up. And I'll do a little more. The statistics are better if you look at more numbers, and so we'll talk about December with that. But for the end of this week, that's what you can expect, mid to upper 30s, and it's good to know when you make a forecast, hey, what can you expect? If I say it's going to be 80, does that fall within the realm of possibility? Well, probably not. The record high for the 10th of December anyway occurred in 1946. And we're talking 62 with a record low of 1 below 0. Average, I have a question though. If anybody's watching and cares to answer, you can put it in the chat and Tyler can let me know later what the answers are, if there are any. The daily average temperature range, or the average daily temperature range in December, is about 13 Fahrenheit. In July, it's more like 20, 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Why do you think there's a difference? What causes that difference in diurnal range? What makes it smaller in December than in July? Okay. There's a question, something to think about. And this cartoon on the right, I just like it because it's true. How many days are exactly normal? Very, very few. And that's going to be the case. I don't even have to look at the pattern to tell you that. In State College, we very rarely have normal days. Normal is a bunch of abnormals lumped together in average. Okay. That cartoon is in honor of the holiday that just passed. For some reason, I laughed like a fool when I saw it. So, hey, have at it. So here's better statistics anyway. The average December highs, again, we're mid to upper 30s. On the long term, we're upper 30s, 30-year average, and we're just about 40, actually. Past 10-year average high in December is 40 degrees. And that would hold for about the middle of this week as well. Average lows, ranging through the mid-20s, but we've gone from the lower mid-20s to the past 10 years, coming up quite a bit. Near 28 degrees Fahrenheit now. Record high for all of December happened on the 7th in 1998. We had a stretch of 2 or 3 70-degree days or near 70-degree days. That was quite the heat wave. And it's been down to 13 below. Of course, that was 1917. None of us were around for that. Liquid equivalent, which means rain plus melted sleet, snow, any frozen stuff falling from the sky, just under 3 inches. Past 30 and 10 years, though, the averages are much higher, which if you are thinking about higher temperatures, well, then there's higher moisture availability, and higher precipitation doesn't necessarily come as a surprise. Driest December, 0.32 inches, wettest December, 6.59. That's a pretty low one, although, it's a fairly cold time of year. And again, atmospheric moistures sometimes at a premium, but I think that's a beatable record. Not this year, most likely, almost certainly. But that could be the next monthly record to fall at some point. Average snowfall, this is what I like to talk about. This will be the thrust of this little forecast, 8 inches. Okay, the long-term average is, I forgot the, no, it is 8 inches is the long-term average, 7.6 is the 30, and 6.1 is the 10. So dropping. The snowiest December 31.5, and the least snowy, we had several trace months, the latest in 2015. Hey, we've already beaten that, though. We have 2/10. So we're just rolling toward a big December. Snowiest December day, amazingly enough, was last year, 15.1 inches. So if you were here for that storm, that was an anomaly, trust me. Okay, more on the climate. State College, it is a nice place to live. We have regular rains, driest month, February. Of course, it's also the shortest month, which makes some sense. Just about 2.5 inches of liquid melted snow, and a little over 4 inches the months of June and August. So nice regular precip. Temperatures, you can see the annual trend, but you can also see, look at the range in the winter, much less between the average high and low than in the summer, where they're separated a bit more. So again, think about that. Okay, so snowfall. This is interesting. What I did is the pink bars are average monthly snowfall of the prior normals, which is 1981 to 2010. And then the green is the most recent. Oh, that should say 2021, by the way. So October, November, and April, I'd call them the shoulder months. And I wouldn't take a lot of stock in numbers then, because, for instance, October's average went from 0.3 to 0.4. So it's gone up in the latest statistics. But really, when you're talking the outer edges of the snow season, you're looking at every several years a relatively large storm, and then nothing or very little most years. So, you get a 3-inch snow in 1 October, and then your 10-year average, if it doesn't snow at all, the rest of the decade is 0.3. So that tends to happen in the shoulder seasons, while really December now, we're just starting to get into the real snow season. And Fred Godomsky, many of you know him, always says, and I believe it, I agree with him, any snow before December 15th is pretty much a bonus around here. It's not going to stick around anyway, so it's wasted. So we haven't wasted a lot. We've had about 1 inch so far this year, the snow season. So December, the average has dropped just a bit, but it's just below 8 inches. Again, we're gonna, I think, have a struggle to get there, but there is one small shot that we can get a storm in the next week. January is December, January, and March, especially January and March, the averages have come down quite a bit. And February, we've actually seen a small increase when we compare normals from the prior period to the latest. But overall, we've lost about 2 inches of average annual or snow season accumulation. So, this all kind of follows a pattern that has been predicted for a little while now. Temperatures, this is the mean temperature from 1896 up to 2020 actually. And I mean, yeah, you can see a long-term trend, I suppose, but really the past 40, 50 years seems to be the greatest increase in mean temperature. And we could break it down a little further. And it's kind of interesting. High temperatures, I mean, the trend is pretty much the same on all of these, but if you look closely, squint and tip your head to the side, I mean, high temperatures the past, I don't know, 30 years, maybe. It's been a lot of variability, but these are annual, by the way, temps. A lot of variability, but I don't see much of a trend there, especially the last 30 years. If you go to lows, that's a different story. You get from the early 60s to now, and there's been a big change. That long-term trend line is about 1/10 of a degree per decade for anything, but I submit the lows have really been coming up. Now you can't just say that's carbon dioxide. I mean, State College is a growing town, and we have buildings where there weren't before. We have more concrete, more asphalt. There's an urban heat island effect that's in here, baked in to some extent. Temperatures are coming up though, State College. They have been and probably will continue. And this is kind of an interesting, more just something to talk about very briefly than anything else. These are records. What records were set each year starting in 1896 when we had reliable temperature records without big gaps. And if you just started 1896, every day in 1896 was a record, right? Because there's nothing to compare it to. So you had a record max each day, a record min max, a record max min. And that's what we're looking at here. So the red are record maxes, the yellows are max mins. So the warm records are on the right, the cold records are on the left, and these are the number of daily records per year. So 1896, a leap year, there were 366 of each record, and then it obviously drops. So really, the drop is not a scientific thing, but once you get past about 30 years, and especially the past 50 or so, you can see that warm in the past 30 years, warm has vastly outstripped the cold records that we've had, and especially the max mins, warmest nights. We've had many more of those. Now, the past 3 years, not as many records. Temperature-wise, we've kind of had a pause in extremes. But prior to that, I mean, yes, we had the occasional min record, very occasional, I mean, unusual. Some min maxes, but really we've gone to the warm side. Okay. Since there's a class coming up in the spring that I teach, I just thought this was a funny cartoon, and involves weather prediction, and hopefully I don't get a D- on the upcoming prediction. So we talked about a little bit of climate. Here's the forecast. And I'll get into some detail. Obviously, we have some time, but today we'll have a period of rain. There's a front approaching, and there's a strengthening storm going by to our north, and that is usually the recipe for some strong winds, especially when the front goes through. More about that in a minute, but places to the on the north side of Tussey Ridge often have strong winds in the winter ahead of these fronts, and especially at night. With south or southeast winds really downsloping off those mountains and causing some pretty strong gusts. We had that last night in Boalsburg, for instance. And then it'll turn cold, and quite a bit colder late today, tonight, and certainly cold enough for snow. Yeah, but we're in State College, so just keep that in mind when we talk about the upcoming days. Tuesday looks like there'll be lots of clouds, very few, if any, snowflakes. Shocker there. Wednesday, Okay, great. There's been talk of a storm. There still looks like there could be some snow, but this is something you'll get used to if you haven't been in State College for a while. Let's start looking at the next potential storm, because this one doesn't look like much of a big deal. Late week, more unsettled weather, another shot of warmth before some rain, and then there's the question: could there be some snow at the end of the next system? Take a look at that. And then looking farther ahead, I would say the pattern doesn't scream snowy. Doesn't mean it's impossible by any stretch, but if you look at the CPC, we're going into a fairly warm upper level pattern. Okay, but there's always a chance of snow. All right, so we'll get out of that. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second and then switch over to another screen here. Okay, get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to share once more. Of course, I've just destroyed my Zoom page. There we go. All right. Let's share this puppy. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to see. I don't know what you're seeing. Can you see anything at all? Let's go back. Okay, try this. Can you see the WPC forecast, Tyler? Is that showing up? Or the surface map? Okay, good. I usually can see a nice little border around it, but I can't see it right now. Okay. So what do we got? We got a warm front moving into Western PA. This is a little bit earlier. It's progressing across the state pretty quickly. And then the real weather makers, this cold front over northwestern Ohio. If you backtrack a little bit, if you look at the low pressure system over North Dakota, it is strengthening. A little shot of cold air getting involved last night, and then storms occluded. But latest map shows now we are in the warm sector, cold front now getting ready to go into Western PA. And that secondary shot of cold air ready to rejuvenate this storm as it goes by to our north. Southerly flow ahead of it. And behind that front, there'll be a quick shift to west to northwest winds, and they could get quite gusty. They're already fairly gusty, but I think they'll be gustier as time goes on. Okay, looking at the E-wall. I like to look at the GFS just for giggles. It is the most consistent model, and I could bring up a couple points here that Elliot Abrams often does when he does these briefings. So let's step ahead here to 18C. Okay, so a couple hours from now, there's that batch of rain off to our west. Good pressure trough. Isobars fairly close together, so we have a nice a fairly strong southerly breeze now. That will shift pretty quickly as this front goes through. Area of rain along the front, a little bit behind it, gets you excited that maybe it could snow at the end of this front. But let's take a look here. So, okay, and this is what Elliot Abrams likes to talk about. So if you look at the 850 temperature and accumulated precip, right, by 21Z, all right, 4 o'clock this afternoon. At 850, our temperatures are going below zero, and our temperatures at the surface are still in the 40s. So right away, you're saying, okay, anything that has fallen, and this is what has fallen. Don't get fooled that there's stuff off to the west still, all right? This is what's fallen. And it all fell before it got even close to cold enough to snow. Winds are shifted to westerly, downsloping, so that doesn't bode well for heavy precipitation. And if we go ahead just a little farther, you can see that by the time it is cold enough, nothing's will have fallen in State College tonight. So there are some lake effect bands that really don't do a heck of a lot, especially here. Just a nice westerly flow, but look at the wind speeds though. Behind that front, I mean, they are gusting, sustained, 15 miles an hour, and then should be gusts between 25 and 35 miles an hour for a while late this afternoon and this evening as the cold air comes in. And it gets chilly. We're down in the 20s. Tomorrow's a cool day. no precipitation. And then, now this is the 60, but this is classic, okay? Get a little bit of overrunning, okay? Next system starts moving in. There's a little band of snow, according to the GFS anyway, off to our north, and a band of snow off to our south. And I say snow because surface temperatures are low, 850 temperature is sufficiently low. And if you looked at a sounding, there is no above freezing air in the layer. Moving ahead though, wow, okay. There's a very weak system passing by to our south that will produce some steady precipitation in the form of snow. The best chance for any decent accumulation, I guess, and I don't even know if it's likely that there'll be that much, is parts of south central or southeastern Pennsylvania. But you can see we're on the edge of both areas, which is typical of State College. If you add up the operational run at 60, you end up with, a couple tenths of an inch of snow, most likely. But nonetheless, Wednesday morning, I think there'll be some flakes in the air. There'll be some snow. A dusting to a half inch probably seems most likely. And temperatures will certainly be low enough for snow and slick walking and travel for a little while. Then that system goes by and the weather is very unexciting but chilly for a few days. High pressure crests moves past us. On Thursday, wind shift to southeasterly. And then there's more overrunning, and this system Thursday night into early Friday could also give us, I don't know about snow. Looks like 850 temperatures will be coming up pretty quickly. There'll be good warm advection aloft, especially. But nonetheless, there could be a good tenth of an inch of precipitation falling in the form of sleet and or freezing rain. Thursday night into Friday. Okay, my mouse has disappeared. That happens on this computer. I'm in the process of whining for a new one. So I have to unplug it and plug it back in. Now my mouse is back. Okay, great. So that's good. So there's that system. And then we move ahead farther and another frontal system approaches. And that's the one that promises the only chance really at a significant snowfall. And you could certainly see by hour 144, we're not talking snow. We're talking strong warm advection, first aloft, then at the surface, and rain moving in for Sunday. Okay, so now let's look at the SREFs. Okay, these are plumes. You saw the operational forecast for snow. This particular forecast is from 3Z. And this would be the average of all the models in this suite here. It's got some NAM, it's got some GF, it's got a lot of things. And suggestion is there's a tenth or two of snow following this front this evening. That's as of 3Z, okay? And then the storm, in quotes, that we're talking about Wednesday looks like, an inch. Okay, maybe an inch of snow on average, with plumes ranging from nothing to almost 4 inches. Okay, so that's from early this morning. If we go back just a little bit, why not? Okay, from 3Z yesterday, similar idea, a little more variability, but if we scroll ahead a little bit, the storm or the end of this front, there were some outlying runs that predicted, up to 3 inches of snow, and that biased the average. So in general, the amount of snow predicted at the backside of the front that's coming through today has been dropping. And in fact, if you go to the latest runs, there's nothing. Okay, so we'll have some flakes probably, but shouldn't be anything on the ground tonight or tomorrow morning in State College. Then we get to the next system, and the plume still, if you're holding out hope, there's a couple runs that bring that system a little farther north and dump 3-4 inches of snow, but really there's just as many under an inch. So the SREFs are suggesting 1.3. The Euro, which I'm not going to show you right now, at least for the short range, is suggesting 0.7, and the GFS operational is even lower than that. So I suspect, again, it's going to be a minimal event, but a little slick Wednesday morning, up to an inch if we're lucky. Half inch seems as likely as anything, as has been the case this whole winter so far, cold season. All right, European. Interesting thing about the European, and I don't know if you're familiar with this Pivotal weather site, but it has the high res Euro. And I was looking yesterday, and often between 5 and 10 days, if you want a snowstorm, this is your model. The operational Euro can kick one out usually. So this got me excited, and we're going to go through this. So this is the forecast for Saturday. Okay. A front, nondescript, really, passing through with very little in the way of rain. You can see the pressure trough, winds shifting to northerly on the backside. Okay. Then what you love to see is a wave coming up along the front as the front goes through. And look at this. This was, okay, yesterday's run. We'll go through this. But we've got this mixed precipitation moving in from the southwest. Whew. All right. And this blob of heavy snow. And the system has a wraparound tail that gives us a decent shot as it passes by. And so from yesterday morning anyway, the Euro had us with 14.4 inches of snow. And this was at the end of the front coming through this weekend. Pretty good, pretty exciting, I must say. So let's just go to the next run. Okay. All right. 14 point, oh, no, wrong way. Sorry. The next run would be here. Oh, sorry. All right. The amount of snow, the end of the front, but maybe it's just a timing thing. So let's go ahead a little bit. Okay. No, 0.6. Let's go to the next run in the Euro, just for the heck of it. And this was the latest one. This is from last night. Yeah, and that includes everything that's fallen up until Sunday. And so unfortunately, it's not looking good for the storm on the Euro. But we can look at plumes to give us a better idea. Here's some, ensembles are where it's at, right? You want to look at what the models are saying, not just one particular run, not just one particular model, but here's the Jeffs. Okay, Jeffs, I like Jeffs, GEFS, starting today. Here's that trough. We're in the business end of a trough, but it's warm, so our rain comes through, cold air gets in here, and we have pretty much zonal flow, a little shift to the southwest, come later Tuesday into Wednesday. That's our disturbance. Boy, it's not very impressive when you look at an ensemble. That trough comes through, cools us off for a while, and another shot of warm air. Again, this is the GEFS. Okay. And that kind of holds strong until we get into the weekend with the next system coming through, varying amounts of rain, depending on the model you look at, but not a washout looks likely. And this doesn't look like anything dramatic on the back end either, before a ridge, really major ridge, starts kicking in when you get near the end of next week. And that does not look like it wants to go anywhere. You see a ridge building over the southeast at this time of year. Excuse me. Snow doesn't seem to be something that's very likely. If we go to the EPS, same idea. Okay, these troughs go through without much fanfare, and then that ridge just wants to build and build and build and build. So certainly when we get into next week, later next week, warm weather seems to be pretty likely. Okay. All right, plumes. Okay, so this is GEFS now. We're going back to the two potential storms. This is the latest I could get with 6Z. This is for UNV. There's today's warmth, and then temperature dropping rapidly with the frontal passage, getting well into the 20s tonight, staying cold for a while. So anything that falls at least through the beginning of the 10th should be freezing or frozen. And then we get that warm up. And at the back end of this little sucker is when we're going to check for precipitation. So let's just go right to the chase and see about snow. Okay, so if we look at the plumes, and the black line again is pretty much the average of everything the GFS wants to spit out. Here's our tonight event. Okay, very little. Here's our next event on Wednesday, Tuesday night into Wednesday. If you add them up, you're talking, that's another ½ inch maybe. And then when you get to the end of the storm on the weekend, backside, there's a couple plumes that can give you hope that we could see some measurable snow, but really the vast majority are saying a little snow at the end, a little more rain at the beginning. We're just going through a cycle of warm and cold with very little opportunity for heavy snow. So that's what I have for the short range forecast, a couple shots at ½ inch of snow or so. That's about it. Go to the longer range. Okay. 8 to 14, you get an idea. Just looking at what we just went through. Yeah, the CPC says it's going to be warm and it's going to be fairly dry. You got a mega ridge over the east. That makes perfect sense. Go out 3 to 4 weeks. If this thing will go, let's give it a second. I'm just going to click it. Okay. Above average continues. However, precipitation also seems to want to ramp up in that period. Temperatures would certainly argue against snow, but if we can get an active storm track and just enough cold air, we are late enough in the year when you get to late December that maybe there could be a Christmas miracle or something like that. So if you want to hold out hope for snow, there's a chance. Shouldn't stick around long with a pattern like this, but what the heck, there's certainly a shot. Go farther out next month. Well, this was a little older forecast, but this is a pretty much a La Nina forecast with dry and warm in the south and relatively warm in our part of the world with precipitation that's near expected monthly averages. And if you go to winter, I don't really put a lot of stock in this. It's the same idea. Well, that's the monthly. Forget it. They're doing the same idea. It's a La Nina forecast with odds favoring warmer than average when you lump the 3 months as a whole, December, January, February, and precipitation not too far from average. And if you saw the long range forecast, if you tuned into the Weather Service a couple of weeks ago, where Dr. Neese and some other folks gave their long range forecasts, there's hope for some snow during the winter, but I think overall the feeling is a little less than average snow and a little warmer than average when it comes to temperature. Okay, so that's what I have for the forecast for climatology. I did give you a question to answer. If anybody answered, Tyler, I'd be shocked, but hey, if you got an answer, lay it on me. But anybody, questions? Typical state college weather, some on and off cold weather, mostly warm for the next 2 weeks. A little bit of snow, most likely Wednesday if you want some slippery weather. The best chance for a big snow, and it's a very, very small chance, is the tail end of the front that comes through this weekend on Sunday. And if we're really fortunate and the cards line up, and I don't think they will, we could see some measurable snow at the back end of that front. But really nothing on the horizon big.
So we do have 2 comments here regarding your question. Marissa says she can't put her answer in here, so maybe off. And then Dr. Neese says more clouds in December reduce the diurnal range.
And Dr. Neese, as you would expect, is right. Sure. What color are clouds from above? They're white. So when the sun's out, if it's cloudy, all of that solar energy, not all of it, but a good chunk of that solar energy is getting reflected back into space, not reaching the ground. So days tend to be cooler when it's cloudy, and at night, those are warmer than outer space, so they're radiating a little energy. They also are good absorbers of escaping terrestrial radiation, and so they radiate a little bit of that back toward the surface and keep it warmer at night. So all in all, you get a reduced diurnal range because it's cloudier. Yes, of course, I'd expect Dr. Neese to answer that correctly. The rest of you watching, that's the answer anyway. Anybody have questions? That's what I have for you. Not very exciting, I know. Hopefully gave you a little information.
So it doesn't look like we have any questions in chat from either YouTube or our on Zoom here. So
Okay.
if anybody does have any questions, you can find Bill here in the Weather Center, or you can just leave a message for CWS and we can pass it along. But thank you everybody for joining. If you missed the beginning of the presentation, this will be uploaded to YouTube shortly later today, so you can watch it again for your viewing pleasure. But again, thank you for sticking around, and thank you, Bill, for talking to us today about the weather.
Thanks, Tyler.
All right, everybody have a nice day. Thank you.